you talking? He said, you must leave because in your book, you wrote about your master. You wrote about what they did with slaves. You told on everybody. You got to get out. And I said, I can't go. I got a speaking engagement in a few hours. And Anna was sitting there with our baby. And he said, Frederick, you must go. Don't worry. We'll be okay. So I boarded the first ship going to Ireland. And I stayed in Ireland for 2 years. And while I was at an engagement, some of my friends, Miss Richardson, she came up to me and she said, Frederick, while I was sophisticatedly drinking my drink, Frederick? Yes, ma'am. I have some news for you. And I was like, what is that news? We sent $750 to your master, Mr. Hugh Hart. You are now a free man. I said, a free man? She said, yes, you are free. So I thought about it for a second, took a drink, and then she said, Frederick, you don't have to go back to America. You can bring your family over here, and you can be free. But then I said, no, I must go back to America, because there's other slaves that look like me. I must go back and help them. And if you don't know this, I'll let you know. I was also a big proponent for women. I fought also for women's rights, for women to be free to vote and do what they wish like men did. It didn't matter the color. I fought hard. Well, when I got back to America, I had the opportunity to meet a man. We became good friends. His name was John Brown. John Brown stayed in my house for exactly 2 weeks. I said, John, you can stay in my house for free. He said, no, Frederick, I'll pay. How much do I have to pay? I said, well, give me $3 a week. He said, okay. Now, in case you don't know who John Brown was a white man. He had a beard. You can look him up online. John Brown, he was a big proponent of doing away with slavery. And John Brown told me, he said, Frederick, I got a mission in hand. I'm going to go to Harper's Valley, and I'm going to kill all the slave owners in Harper Valley. And Frederick, I want you to come go with me. And I said, John, are you for real? He said, yes. I am sick and tired of slavery, so I'm going to do away with the slave owners. And I said, John, you would risk your life like that? And he said, well, Frederick, please come. And he had a slave with him. And the slave said, I must go. And I said, for real? Are you going to go? He said, yes, I must go with the old man. And John Brown came up to me and he hugged me. And he whispered in my ears. And he said, Frederick, I really wish you would go with me. And I said, John, you're making a big mistake. He said, that's okay. It's worth it. Well, I have you know that 2 weeks later, John Brown was killed. But before he was killed, he had killed maybe about 10 slave owners. Him and his boys, if you will. And back then, unlike now, when you went to the galleys, they would hang you. But they wouldn't do it behind the wall. They would have it in the courtyard where everybody would see it. And they hung him, and John Brown became a martyr. He became a hero. He became the greatest man that all slaves knew at the time. Well, just for the sake of time, I know a lot of us nowadays say that Barack Obama, Martin Luther King Jr., was the first black man to go into the White House. Well, I have you know that I was the first black man to enter into the White House. I have you know that it was my campaigning that helped get elected one Abraham Lincoln. I believed in what Abraham Lincoln was fighting for. There were 2 other men that were vying to be president of the United States. The first man, believe it or not, his last name was Douglas. So I said, I like that name. And I didn't tell you that my name had changed from Johnson once we got into Connecticut or Massachusetts. My name had changed from Johnson to Douglas. Not 1 S, but 2 S, Douglas. And when I found out that this gentleman here was running for president, I said I might vote for him just because of his last name. But come to find out, after I read about his platform, he didn't care about slavery, whether it stayed or whether it ended. And then there was another gentleman by the name of Richardson, who basically had the same idea. But Abraham Lincoln, his idea, even though his wife, Mary Lincoln, let the truth be told, owned 3 slaves. But Abraham Lincoln wanted to do away with slavery. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln went from being senator to president. In October of 1861, I was invited to the White House. And when I got to the White House, I had a talk in the Oval Office with the President of the United States. And Mr. Lincoln asked me, he said, "Frederick, how can I help you, sir?" I said, "Mr. Lincoln, I come to you because there's 3 things on my mind. One of the issues that I have on my mind is the black man fighting in the Civil War. America at this time was in the midst of the Civil War. And I wanted to have black men to honestly fight with weapons. Even though black men at that time were in the war, but they did the cleaning, they did the building, they did the washing of the dishes, they did the washing of the clothes. My fight was, how about letting the black man get in the war and fight?" My second issue was the freedom of all black people in this country. My third issue was the freedom of all women to vote. The freedom of all women to make the same amount of money, if you will, as men. Well, after I brought my case to Mr. Lincoln, he stood up and he looked out the window. And he turned around and he said, "Well, Mr. Douglas, I think we need to take our time with this. Because if we move too fast, we could cause an unfortunate trouble in America." And I said, "Mr. Lincoln, we should move on at least one of these on this agenda." Well, I had made my way back to Massachusetts. It was January the 1st, 1863. It was cold, snow on the ground. And all of a sudden, we saw a man on a horse coming. And he was screaming, "Heal thee, heal thee, heal thee, heal thee." And he jumped off the horse and he unraveled the piece of paper that he had. And he started shouting and reading what the paper said. "On this day, January the 1st, 1863, according to, signed by the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, this day forth, all black citizens of this country are forever free. The Emancipation Proclamation. And I have you know, upon hearing that we were free, we celebrated the whole night long. Because now we were free. And a little later, we got the news that black men could fight in the army, part of the Civil War. Moving on, just for the sake of time. Not only did I produce my first book, The Narrative and Life of Frederick Douglass, I have you know I started producing my own newspapers, the Frederick Douglass Weekly, the North Star, and the Rochester Now, just to name a few. We had also moved to Rochester, New York. Anybody here ever heard of the KKK? Ku Klux Klan? Well, I have you know, while we were on First Street in Rochester, New York, somebody came along and bombed our house. When they bombed our house, thankfully, none of us got hurt, but all of my paperwork, all of my documents had got blown away. But I think one person, my son Lewis, he captured my book. He saved my book. And from there, we moved to Washington, D.C. If you look at that black display board there, you will see images from inside of my home in Anacostia. From there, after 40 years of being married to my wife, Anna Mary, she had a stroke. And not too far after, she passed away. passed away, it took a lot out of me. Anybody ever heard of a young lady by the name of Harriet Tubman? Harriet Tubman was a good friend of mine. Harriet Tubman would come to the home and she would visit me. And she would tell me things like, Frederick, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Well, as I began to regain my composure, I became the first black man to run and be CEO director of Freeman's Savings Bank in Washington, D.C. I also became the marshal, the first black marshal of Washington, D.C. And as a matter of fact, I went back to visit my old master, Master Hugh Ard. By this time, he was sick, frail, and in his 70s. And when I went to visit him, he called me Marshal. I told him, and I still called him Master. I said, Master, don't call me Marshal. Call me like you used to call me, Freddie. He said, but you're the Marshal now. And he also told me, he said, Freddie, I will be honest with you. I felt bad holding you as a slave. You didn't know this, but I will let you know now that I made a lot of different open doors for you to become free. But I could not come to you and tell you personally, because you really was like a son to me. Well, after I left, believe it or not, 2 weeks later, Master Hugh Ard died. I was commissioned to work in Haiti for 2 years. Anybody ever heard of Ulysses S. Grant? President Ulysses S. Grant. I campaigned for him, and also he came up with the Anti-Klan Act. That means that 5,000 clans were jailed or either killed for hanging blacks. Also, as I got older, and this is the part a lot of people don't like, I had a secretary that worked for me. Her name was Miss Helen Pitts. Miss Helen Pitts, she was 20 years younger than I was. I was 66, she was 46. And also Miss Helen Pitts was white. Well, Helen and I, we married. And as we married, we traveled not only the United States, but we traveled all over Europe. We traveled all over the world for 3 months. And we came back. And I had to go to a meeting. Let me ask you, anybody ever heard of a young lady by the name of Susan B. Anthony? Anybody here have any Susan B. Anthony dollar coins? You have some?
Oh, honestly, I went to the store and spent like $3 a coin.
Well, don't come to my house because I got 10 of them. Matter of fact, I'm putting a lock on them now. Okay? So anyway, with a cane in my hand, I went to an anti-social, if you will, meeting. This was a meeting to help fight for the rights of women. When I left the house, I got in the carriage. And the carriage took me to the Washington Convention Center. This was February the 20th, 1877. That convention center is still here today. As a matter of fact, last year in 2018, I was at that same Washington Convention Center doing a seminar. Well, when I got to the convention center, I was helped out of that carriage by the one and only Susan B. Anthony. She helped me up to the podium. I got up to the podium, I spoke. And after I spoke, she helped me back to the carriage. The carriage took me back to my home, Anacostia. And when I got to home, Miss Helen Pitts, my wife, she was entertaining company. And she said, Frederick, are you hungry? I said, no, dear. Would you like something to drink? No, dear. So I told her that I was making my way upstairs to relax before I move out on my next engagement. Well, soon as I put my foot on the first step, I felt a strange feeling in my chest. And all of a sudden I started going down. And I had a major heart attack right there on the foot of the step. And if you look at that blue board right there, the last picture to your right, That is a demonstration of how Frederick Douglass died on that day of February the 20th, 1877. At the age, 1895, at the age of 77. Upon my death, I laid in state. Anybody know what lay in state means? Anybody? What does it mean? Okay? He said it means laying in the rotunda. We lost President Bush last year, I think it was. Well, for a whole week, they had President Bush casket with him inside in the rotunda. And they had National Guard that was standing around that casket. Well, that's the same thing that they did to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass became the first black man to lay in state in the rotunda of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. after he died. Frederick Douglass, there were kings, there were queens, there were princes, there were other presidents throughout the country, different countries, that made their way to America to say goodbye to Frederick Douglass. I am currently buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. And also, just so you know, starting 2020 school year in most of the northern schools, they will be instituting or starting a curriculum just on Frederick Douglass in public schools, in the majority of the schools in the north of America, starting school year 2020. In the Capitol, there are statues of Frederick Douglass. You can read a lot about Frederick Douglass, just type in his name, and anything you want to know more about Frederick Douglass that I didn't cover today, you can do that. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. I don't know. I don't know if we have time for some answers, any question and answers. And please, if you have any questions, please say it loud so I can hear. Because I have this fan that's right here in my ear. Any questions? Don't be ashamed, don't be shy. Go ahead. Okay. Okay, I'll take forgotten questions too. Huh? The answer is yes. Any other questions? Class, students? I hear them talk. I hear you talking among yourself. I'll take a question. Oh, I thought you had a question. How old are you? 18. I'm 62. You're too young to be forgetting. Go ahead. Thank you, sir. That's Frederick Douglass? Okay, the question was, I said I had a kid. As a matter of fact, I did not have the kid, and I had the kid. We had 5 children, right? 4 of the children are on the board right there. My baby girl, Annie, unfortunately, she died at the age of 10. And just to let you know, I had maybe about 17, 18 grandchildren. And because of the how medicine was back then, at my home, a lot of my grandchildren, unfortunately, they passed away. But I had 5 children. As a matter of fact, Lewis and Frederick Jr., they served in the Civil War. Lewis was a lieutenant. Frederick, he was a sergeant. All right? They did make it through the military and they came back home. Okay? My other son, he helped out with the newspapers with my daughter, my oldest daughter, Rosetta. Okay? Now, we'll let you know, Rosetta, after I got married to Helen Pitts, Rosetta, she was extremely upset at me. She said some words that I will not repeat to me. Okay? So we have 5 children. Thank you for your question. Did I answer? Anybody else with a question? Thank you, my man. Good question. The question is, why did I start impersonating Frederick Douglass? Believe it or not, as crazy as this may sound, I got up one morning and I was standing in the mirror brushing my teeth. As I was brushing my teeth, I heard 3 times, Frederick Douglass, Frederick Douglass, Frederick Douglass. And I looked around because it sounds so real. I looked around to see was anybody in the room. Nobody was in the room, and I just took it as a sign. I took it as a sign from God. So what I did, I ran down to the Strife Theater. Back then, it was the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center. That same day, I went to the Strife Center, and I reserved the Tico Theater. That was back in 2010 or 2009. And since then, I've been just about all over the country performing. Anybody ever heard of Charlie Wilson, the singer? I opened up for Charlie Wilson one year. I spoke at the Cuban embassy. How many of you all heard of Aretha Franklin? Okay, well, when she died, they had her body, you might have saw the picture, when she was laying in the casket with the red dress, with her legs folded. Well, that was at the Charles Wright Museum in Detroit, Michigan. That was one of the spots that I also performed Frederick Douglass. So I've just about been all over the country doing Frederick Douglass. It's a gift, it's an honor, and like I said, I'm celebrating 10 years as Frederick Douglass. Anybody else? Thank you very much. So I will say this, as we close, agitate, 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 and I want to let you know that each one of you young people in here, you got so much freedom at your hands right now. You have the ability to go, to do whatever your mind tells you to do. The only person that's going to stop you from your dream and your desire is you. But the first thing you must do is swerve yourself around education and knowledge. Those two will get those doors open for you. Thank you very much.